Okay, so the way this is going to work very quickly. So, how many people here, and in between bites of the burger here, are familiar with Shark Tank and have seen the show before? Raise your hand, please. All right, that's a lot of people. Perfect. So, the way this is going to work is that we are going to basically have this be the exact same way as the show, and we are not using trademarks, so don't tell them. But at any rate, so what we're going to do is we're going to have the three finalists that made it yesterday. So, Shayna, you're right here. Aaron's walking down, and Lucas, I think you're somewhere in the room. Not entirely sure where he is, but I think he's coming down. Found him. He's there. So we are going to get into it. What I think we're going to do first is figure out who's going to go first. I think that I want to just ask the crew, who would like to go first? Does anybody want to go first? So, okay.
Or you could choose. I like that.
What do we think? What do we think, folks? How are we going to choose? Anybody have any interesting suggestions? Oh, I like that.
Let's go, Aaron.
Yeah, let's go, Aaron. All right, Mr. Aaron Harper coming up first here. Let's give him a round of applause, folks. Popping right here.
No slides.
All right, so 10 minutes, and I'm going to start the clock in 1 second.
Should we introduce the Sharks? We got Lori.
That's a very, very important point. I probably should have introduced the people that are standing behind me, and I'm going to kind of show right here. So what we wanted to do also is kind of create an experience where you guys actually had people who, in theory, would be Sharks, except, of course, skewed a little bit younger, of course, for the Young Conference model here. So we're really, really lucky to have a couple people. So number one, we have Joseph Trahan, who is from Princeton Equity Group. We have Nick Rhodes, who's from Heritage Partners. We have, of course, the kind of the king, and of course somebody who just got acquired last month.
Hey, Princeton.
So we have Tony Zaccario from Stretch Zone, recently acquired brand, and then of course, last but most certainly not least, Grant Marks from Riverside. So really excited to have the four of these folks here, and without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron to start the exam.
Hello, Sharks. Is this on? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Hey, guys.
Mr. Harper.
How's it going? I'm excited to talk to you guys today.
Let's kick it off.
I'm ready for it. Let's go.
Do it. Who would like to start?
You got a list of notes over here?
Yeah, I sort of came prepared. So you've been around a lot of home services brands, right?
Yep.
Belfour and Patch Boys, I think.
Yep.
So what lessons have you learned maybe from being around those brands that are more mature, more established, that you're applying to an earlier stage startup brand?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one that's like a super big miss that I've seen in franchising is kind of a proactive coaching approach. So I've seen a lot of coaches that will coach a franchisee to get to $55,000, $60,000, $65,000 a month, but they're still the one doing the estimates. They're still the one talking to customers. And then what happens is the coaches back off and they go focus on the ones that need to launch. And so what we're doing is we're building systems on the front end to help that $55,000 a month guy get to $150,000 a month or $200,000 a month or $250,000 a month to build an asset rather than a job. And what ends up happening is if someone buys a business, they want to buy a business, they don't want to leave a job to have another job. And so if you don't do that, what ends up happening is 2 years in, 2.5 years in, they get bored just like they would at another job and they try to sell their business and there's not a ton of value to the business because they're the business. And so how do we create systems on the front end? So the guy that I hired as my VP of operations, he built a moving and junk business to 12 trucks. He was working 5 hours a week on that business and then he exited that business, right? So he's the one that's leading the charge on this. So I was intentional about who I was hiring so that I could provide that support.
And real quick as a refresh, how many units do you have open?
So we have 5 sold. Our first training is in June.
Okay, so no units open yet.
No units open yet.
How are you designating territories?
You mean by size?
Yeah, like how you selling them?
225,000 to 275,000 people. We do a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3. So there will be 8 units, 3 franchisees going to training in June. 2 franchisees are in Austin on either side of the city, which is awesome if you can get 2 franchisees in the same market going to training together. So we're really fortunate about that. That's, again, something that I've learned in franchising that you could do. And then Omaha as well.
So how many people would it take to service 225,000, like a population size 225,000?
How many trucks?
Trucks, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the same thing I tell candidates. We don't know yet. We have a franchise. We have one corporate location that's been around for 33 years that's been operating without borders. They've been spending no money on advertising for 5 years and stopped advertising for marketing in general for residential leads for that time. What I tell them is if I was to tell someone, hey, 2, maybe 3 trucks per territory, I think I'd be undershooting it. Because the total addressable market is every single structure that you drive by. And so to be able to go to those people who own those structures, whether it's a business or it's a government or it's a homeowner, and just say, hey, I have a Polo on and an iPad and a wrapped vehicle and technology, we can clean your building, is just something that's not happening currently.
So are they given exclusivity within that 225,000?
Yes, 100%.
So down the road, if you designate that, hey, it does need 3 trucks, and they sit in their heels and say, hey, I just want to sit with 1.
Well, that's why I don't sell one territory to someone. If someone's like, I just want 1 truck in 1 territory, I say, this isn't the business for you. So I set the expectation early on that we're looking for empire builders that want to build a multi-million-dollar operation.
Do you have a minimum? Is it
Yes,
a
there are minimums.
2 license minimum, 3 license
Oh,
minimum?
yeah, in terms of sales. Yeah, 2 license minimum.
Yeah. And yet, yesterday, I should give the audience some context for this question. Yesterday, I go up to Aaron after his fantastic, well-prepared presentation, and I say, one of my best friends, Aaron, my best friend, I've known him my whole life. He owns a power washing business. And Aaron says, basically, he might not be the right person.
Right. We don't want.
Who are you looking for? Who is your ideal franchisee?
So I mentioned yesterday my niche is home services. I niched down a little bit further even within home services by helping white-collar professionals and sophisticated business owners step into blue-collar businesses. So with Patch Boys, we brought people from cybersecurity, medical sales, management, into a business that's drywall repair. It's not rocket science. And Rolling Suds is a simpler business model. It's 2 guys on a truck. That truck brings in $373,000 a year in top-line revenue with a 39% profit margin. It's not rocket science. It's labor marketing, chemicals, and efficiencies.
All right, you touched on numbers. I'm going to dig in.
Yes, please. Numbers are my favorite.
I've already heard one number. It was 0. That's the amount of locations.
Correct. 0, guys.
Yeah.
0 open.
4 is the number of Yeti mugs that we got yesterday.
Yeah. They didn't see your guys' present. You might want to tell them the present.
It was a customized Yeti mug. I'll use it. I don't know if that wins the contest.
With your guys' full names on it, I believe.
It was even spelled correctly.
And they were spelled correctly with the Rolling Suds logo on it.
So Aaron, on the numbers front, you mentioned 375?
$373,305.19 per truck on average.
So that's per truck?
Per truck.
Okay.
How many trucks? Based on 5 average trucks. In a seasonal market operating 205 days out of the year, which is Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
And you said, what was the bottom line number, 39%?
Yes, on a truck. And then on their
go ahead.
On their overall business, because they do a little over 2.2 million, I also put their P&Ls for the last 3 years on their overall business. That's a 37% profit margin. And in my item 19 is every single expense
Yeah, so
that they have.
Does that include
That
salary?
includes, that's EBITDA.
Okay.
Yep.
Not a salary for the owner?
No.
Got it. So what's your payback expectation, at maturity once these businesses are ramped?
So our all-in is about $250,000 for 3 territories and a truck. 2 trucks will bring in $250,000 in net margin at the end of the year. So our goal is to get franchisees to 2 trucks within the first year. So what we do from a marketing standpoint is we front load marketing expense. So we basically internally manage 6 months of marketing in their marketplace, and they invest as well. So we invest alongside them, but my marketing director and my marketing team pulls the strings with the different marketing agencies we work with to make sure that as month 7 rolls around, they know exactly what, hey, I've spent this much money and I've generated this much income as a result. 39.9. 8% royalty, 2% marketing.
When you have these conversations with prospective franchisees and with the franchisees that you've already signed up,
Yep.
and they say, this looks incredible, $2 million, 40% margins.
Yep.
If I'm in that seat and I ask you, is this realistic for me? Because
say-
this guy's been doing this for 30 years, and he actually is not your ideal franchisee. He is not a retired white-collar professional. I have a vendetta.
So the dad who started the business in 1990 is working about 3 hours, maybe a day on the business. He just does commercial estimates. So what I tell them is it's like almost impossible to replicate the nuances of a 33-year-old business that's doing $2.2 million a year and all the like intricacies that go into that. That's why I broke it down on a per truck basis, because then it's like, it's just how many trucks can we get in a market? How many trucks do we need? And what are the efficiencies on that truck? So I set the expectation that we're just going to get you to as many trucks as we can as fast as possible.
Yeah. But you're basically guiding them to revenue per truck.
That's
you should
exactly
be making
right.
X margin on this
Correct.
revenue per truck.
Because that's realistic. I can't be like, hey, they do 2.2 million and then you're going to, it doesn't even make sense. It's like they did this in 33 years. They're not advertising. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But if we boil it down per truck, it does make sense because I can replicate that truck hundreds of times. Because like I said, it's labor, marketing, chemicals, and 2 employees.
So how differentiated is that? I remember you said yesterday, I can hire a monkey to do this.
Yeah.
How are we going to differentiate the brand
Yeah.
over time here?
So that's what I talked about yesterday is differentiation and product offering. So that takes, in my opinion, 2 approaches. One is the customer experience has to be systemized, right? Whether it's a sales guy that we train or the franchise owner, that customer experience has to be uniform across all locations. So we're working on that from that perspective. The other thing that has to be standardized is our process. And that's the thing that makes them different. That's the thing that makes us different. We're power washing 5 stories from the ground. We come with a 16-foot box truck. We're doing a $500 job, 3,000 square foot house in 25 minutes. Their biggest objection that they get from customers is, are you guys doctors or lawyers? Because they're charging $500. You know what I mean? Like, but what we say is we invest heavily in equipment. Like our trucks are $126,000 with everything put into them. And that allows us to do the commercial side of things, which is a difference in product offering. Go ahead.
Question. I was going to go a different direction. How do you think about the recession resiliency of the category? Is this a discretionary, non-discretionary purchase for residential customers and then for corporate customers?
Right. So that's what I looked at when I was analyzing different businesses is like, what's the average job size? And is this something that they want to hold off on because it's too expensive, like a kitchen remodel or an addition on a house or construction? But the average job size for residential is $500. And our target customer is middle to higher income folks who have like standards of living and they can't have black mold on the side or algae on their roof and stuff like that. That's the residential side. The commercial side is, every single business needs to be cleaned. If you just look at restaurants as an example, and again, the target market is massive, but just to use restaurants as an example, if we go after all the KFCs in a market and someone's driving through a KFC and they look at the side of the building and there's like mold on the side, they already might feel gross because they're in a line at KFC. And now, no offense to KFC, but like now there's black mold on the side of the building and like people won't come in to that building, right? So like it's needed. It's a necessary service.
I know Zach, we have to go, but one question. And last question for me. What do you identify, and it's hard to say because you don't have any units open yet, what do you identify as the biggest weakness at the unit level and also at the ZOR level?
So the biggest weakness at the Zor level right now is we don't have 20 franchisees operating that we've tested the market in Nashville and Orlando versus this type of stuff. So I mean, that's transparently the biggest weakness right now. At the franchisee level, we need to standardize that customer experience from both the technical and the sales perspective. And so getting them, either the owner to learn that or the sales guy that they hire prior to going to training, and then bringing that sales guy to training, we got to make sure that that technical side is, and that's more on us than the franchisee, because the franchisee is paying us. We have to earn the royalty from them. And so by doing that, we have to provide them the support to replicate. And I know we're going to be able to do it. I'm not worried about that at all. Thank you guys very much.
All right, folks, next victim. Shayna, come on up.
Handouts. We're getting handouts up here. Thanks, brother.
All right, hit me. Who's starting?
I will go ahead and kick off because I had this question yesterday, Shannon. By the way, I thought you did an awesome job yesterday.
Appreciate it.
I was disappointed to hear that you just completed a financing round because we were about to make this real life Shark Tank yesterday. Keep me in mind, please. You have sold how many licenses and how many stores do you actually have open today?
So we opened our first location, company owned, in 2020. We have that one unit operating. We have one other company unit under construction. We've sold 10 franchises in the last 12 months, 2 5-unit deals, 5 units in Denver. The first Denver franchisee will be opening mid-June, and another 5 units in Fort Lauderdale area, and we have a handful other in agreements right now. The first lease is actually going to be at Flagler Village.
Tony's
You have a
dropping
customer.
off his dog.
And the Denver one is at 9 & Co. right outside Cherry Creek. So if we have anyone in those markets, pre-sale is open and probably definitely going to be sold out.
Where are the corporate units?
Los Angeles.
LA. Okay.
And remind us unit economics on the corporate unit, just highlights.
So I'll give you this. Our average dog member spends around $200 per month at Dog Drop. And our whole thing, I don't want to go too far into the FDD right now. So
I got you.
of not trying to dodge you, but
Just give us a series of winks and nods.
I'll say our first corporate location, we're at break even within 6 weeks on a store level, and then profitable, obviously, on week 7.
What are the, you mentioned some yesterday, but it's just the use cases for this service. So if you had a pie chart, like percentages, like what are people using this service for? And then what are the hours? Are you open on the weekends? Are you open late, early to accommodate more flexibility in schedules?
Sure. So our whole company is around being convenient and flexible for the dog parent. So we're open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So we always want to be open earlier than our competitors and later than our competitors. And then as well on Saturdays, our operators are off on Sundays. This really helps with staff retention more than anything. When it comes to, what was the last part of the question? I know you asked about our hours.
Use cases, like what are people using this for?
Use cases. So 70% of our members live within a 10-minute walk of Dog Drop, and around 60% are hybrid workers. So what we're really doing is opening up the market size, not just for Monday through Friday 9-to-5ers who are at work all day, but anyone that lives within 10 minutes who wants to get their dog out for 90 minutes a day. We charge in 30-minute increments, and whether they're going to the gym next door, our Arts District location has an F45 across the street. A ton of people drop their dog off, go to an F45 class, work out, have a couple uninterrupted Zoom calls, all of the above, and that's really opening up the use case for these more flexible quick stops. Do you charge for 30 minutes? It's $6 every half hour.
Do you have an idea of, I'm sure you do, but can you speak to how much of your revenue is actually like less than 90 minutes? Or
we break it into 4 hours or less or 4 hours or longer in terms of how we break up our quick stop users and then call them full days. It's around 60% is quick stop users. That's actually where we make most of the money. and then the other 40% is all days. We consider it like a parking garage, right? So we have a capacity limit. You can park one car capped at a rate of, let's say, $50 a day, or you get 6 different dogs in that parking spot, right, at $12 an hour sort of thing. So actually you're making a lot more money on the quick stop dogs rather than if I'm watching Nick all day for 12 hours, I'm capped at $50.
Can you talk a little bit about the real estate component of this? One of the few things I know about this world is that it can be hard to negotiate TIs and get people excited about having, dogs next to other retail locations.
So franchisees are attracted to Dog Drop for the top 2 reasons: is our tech that we build ourselves, and the second is our real estate strategy. So we go to large multifamily developers, management groups, operators, landlords, all of the above. Think of a gray star continuum, and we position Dog Drop as an amenity for their residents. So let's say we're actually looking at maybe like a 5-unit deal in Charlotte. I'm gonna go to Gray Star and I'm like, hey, do you want an on-site dog drop, dog daycare, right? What we need is sub 3,000 square feet. I want to make sure you have 200 residential units above. I want next door a human concept where a human spends 1 to 3 hours at a time. I want to start at $60 a square foot in TI allowance. I want to start at 1 year free rent abatement. What do you have? If you don't have 5 spaces for me that fit that criteria, then I'm going to go to all your competitor multifamily developers, because residents, their number 1 requested amenity is for dog-friendly apartments. So that's really a huge part of our strategy. Significantly increases the payback period. The build-out cost is the build-out. I'll give you real numbers for our first location. Was $200,000 build-out. The landlord gave us $90K back in TI. It was $110 out of pocket. So payback super fast, as you can do the math backwards.
And sorry, Joe, 1 second. You say we. Do you have a in-house real estate development team, and are you doing this on behalf of franchisees?
So our corporate, we want to handle as much of the site selection as possible because we have these partnerships and strategies. So we have already built this with some of the larger multifamily development groups, as I've mentioned. And so we'll go out, and this is a huge reason why franchisees are coming to us. Any small business owner is like, holy shit, I don't want to even have to deal with real estate. There's a ton of underutilized retail space in these multifamily developments. Look around every apartment nearby. You walk by, you see 300 units above. Graystar's told us 65% of residents are dog parents. So just with that alone, if you take half of them, that can fill up your membership base. Because our locations are smaller, you need around 400 to 450 monthly members, so you can hit capacity pretty quickly.
How do you think about membership, pricing models, membership models for the concept?
Convenience. Anything we do, if it's not convenient, we're probably not going to do it. So for us, it's all monthly membership. You sign up for Dog Drop, and then it's you pay a monthly membership fee, and then it's pay for every 30 minutes in increments. The membership fee starts at $60. So we have $60 for the number, like the basic membership, or it's $700 monthly for unlimited. Unlimited memberships have been consistently sold out for the last 3 years. Yep. Yeah. So if we have a 3,000 square foot space can have around 70 to 75 dogs at any given time. 70. Yeah, 70 to 75.
How many staff do you have?
We have a 15-to-1 ratio, one of the highest in the industry. So 15 dogs for every 1 qualified dog handler.
And so what's your cap on unlimited?
Around 25 dogs.
And I'm saying this as a chocolate lab owner. I mean, is that enough room? Like,
Yeah.
like my whole thing is like, if I want them to run, like I need them to get out and run.
Yep.
75 dogs.
So we have
Couldn't
three
imagine.
different spaces. We have 3 different energy group playrooms as well. And so most of the dogs as well, and you can look on our Instagram, go to Dog Drop Arts District and check out our stories today, or Dog Drop Co. You can see there's space for the dogs to run and play as well. Of course, it's a personalized experience. If your dog, we get a 4-month-old Doberman, and we're like, hey, this is probably not the best dog, and we're not the best space for this dog right now. We've been at capacity for 18 months. I'm happy to recommend them to an outdoor doggy daycare that has a ton of space, because we're really focused on the quick stops, that most of the dogs off leash for 3 hours at a time within our space isn't a problem. Like any dog care services, anyone that says they should take every dog probably is not the best kind of philosophy.
So I think you sort of answered this question, but this is sort of like, I think, an obvious investor question to ask. So what would prevent Dogtopia, Camp Bow Wow, some of these competitors from just providing this service offering to their customers?
Sure. So I think there's a few pieces, right? We go to convenience, flexible, tech-enabled. That's the foundation of our business. Convenience, the real estate. Can Dogtopia or Camp Bow Wow tomorrow start doing the same multifamily strategy, going on the ground floor? Sure, maybe. They also do boarding and grooming at most of their locations. We do not, and overnight boarding is different zoning. So we can go in daycare only anywhere a retailer, coffee shop, C2 zoning can go. The second thing is grooming. Multifamily developers do not want a wet dog grooming business, that's where the smell comes from, on the ground floor. The other part is the flexibility. Of course, to enable people to come in and out throughout the day, it's actually a part of the operation. So you would be significantly changing the operations and what your staff is doing. The third part is technology. If you have a business for 20 plus years and now you hire a third-party app developer, it's really difficult. I think some of the panelists from today, the Oxy Fresh guy, I loved his kind of philosophy. Not sure if he's here, but really building that out from within. And that's really what enables us to even check the trends. So every day we get trends and data analytics. Sort of if you go onto Google and you're like, when is my Starbucks busiest? You can kind of see that bell curve. And we can look at staffing. We could make staffing assumptions, capacity, membership, all of the above. We have that all built in. We also do sprints. Appreciated that comment from him as well. We ship new features every week. So it's just a completely different foundation. But I think anything in dog is a massive business. It's a $120 billion plus business. Anyone can crush it.
Thank you, Shayna. Okay, so we are on to our last participant and finalist, Mr. Lucas Clark. Lucas, come on up.
Hello, Sharks. Wow. Do we need to ramp up the intensity here, audience, for our final? Lucas was plying me with cocktails last night.
I am going to bring up Angel's going to give me the video, Angel, if you want to give me the video from yesterday. Just because you have a little ninja in the background, I think is a great visual for all of us, just as we're talking about this. So just remind how happy all these kids and families and parents are. All right, Sharks, lay it on me.
I think we were sitting next to each other, and the first thing that happened came on. I was like, I want to go try it. But the one question I have is staffing, right? To set up these courses, typically a franchisee has a staff, relatively how many full-time, how many part-time in general?
Sure. So the way that we have the model set up in the item 19, we have one full-time staff member, which we call the mobile lead. So we see the franchise owner as the person who's doing the community relations, building the sales, and then they're passing off their mobile lead, essentially their operations person, that's going to then execute these events. That person's going to go to the events, and they're going to staff the other 2 people that needs to go set up the course. So it's going to be the mobile lead, those other 2 people, and then if they have a second, with their second course, they're probably going to want to add a couple more hourly folks as well. So college-age kids, people who need hours on a weekend, that type of thing. Really, so far, so well in Colorado. We've had no issues with getting hourly staff in to work a 6-hour, 7-hour event, random days, Thursdays, Saturdays, that kind of thing. So we're just pulling from staff that we
You say 2 people set this up?
Three people, yeah.
3 people set this whole thing
And
up.
did you say yesterday they could set it all up in an
Hour and a half, yeah.
Hour and a half?
Yeah, and I mean, we've tested, I've clocked it. Like, I'm not the best, like, person in terms of putting stuff together like this, like Lego-wise, and like, I could do it with 2 people.
You're telling us in the audience that you know how to put this together?
I know how to put this together. I've put together 17 events, yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
So if you're a franchisee, do you have to know how to turn a wrench?
I think, no, you don't need to turn a wrench. It's actually, it's all pin truss. So you actually lift up this aluminum truss and slot it into these sort of pin joints, and then you just hammer in pin truss. So there's no actual electrical equipment or battery-powered equipment that needs to be put together.
But if you're a prospective franchisee, you're not telling them that, hey, you're going to be physically setting up these ninja courses.
No, you would hire somebody to be your ops person that would be going, they'd be driving the truck, they'd be unloading it, they'd be setting it up. You would basically just be interfacing from a sales standpoint. So we look for sales acumen when we look for franchisees, people who want to like get on the phone, call people, call churches, schools, event planners, all within a given territory, really do outreach in the community. And then, they're the ones who pass it off to the ops folks.
So on that note, who is your ideal franchisee and where are you looking for them?
Right now we're doing a ton of outreach through our existing arenas. Like we've been pushing out a lot of emails and a lot of, outreach saying, hey, Ninja Nation Mobile is now its own franchise business, smaller investment level to all of our existing 5 arenas that we have open and operating. So that email list is 300,000 folks. We've had a lot of interest from people who already know the brand, know the concept. We've also reached out to people who've been to mobile events. So we have data on every single mobile event that we've done. Yeah, attendees. Everybody signs a waiver, so we get their name, email address, phone number. We've done close to 800 events since we opened in 2018. So we have an entire list across the country of folks we've reached out to. So we've had interest in Omaha, Nebraska, in California, from a franchisee standpoint. No deal signed yet, but we do have the corporate one that we're running in Denver. And I just pulled up an email today because we got reports sent out. And they've had an 80% rebooking rate on all the things we did last year, and they're probably going to be at 110 events for the rest of this year, which is close to $400,000 in revenue.
How many brick and mortar locations do you have in Denver?
We have 2 brick and mortar in Denver, and then we have 2 in Texas, 1 in North Carolina, currently open. Then we have 4 more that are going to be opening this year. Let's see, we have 18 in development, 5 open, and 7 franchise groups.
At a brick and mortar location?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea with mobile is that you don't have a brick and mortar location. You are going out into the community and doing events, and you're not doing a lease. All you're doing is storing the equipment and having a truck.
Is that, if I called you today and said I'm interested, is that what you would lead with?
Well,
Mobile versus having brick and mortar?
So we actually, on our Fran Dev, we have 2 different paths that people sort of go down. And when I do intro calls, like I sort of mention that, and most of the time people will be like, oh, I'm interested in the mobile, or I'm interested in the brick and mortar. It's a pretty like off the bat conversation starter. And then we just sort of lead down the path of whether you're more suited for a mobile or more suited for brick and mortar.
Well, why even have a brick and mortar? What's the advantage?
Man, people really love like having like a established business brick and mortar that they like can go in there and high five parents. It's also a different business model. You're doing birthday parties, you're doing summer camps, you're doing drop off stuff. The mobile is an event rentals based business. So it's not a pay to play. You're not like setting it up in a park and charging kids, $5 for a course run.
I got you now. Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit more like you're not necessarily a community hub like a Ninja Nation arena would be, with like all the folks that are coming in. You're going out into the community and doing events.
I'm gonna pull on the waiver thread.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it? Have you had any issues? Is it safe? Have you had any claims? How much is your insurance?
5 years. 5 years. No claims. We've had probably 1.1 million people through our doors and through our mobile courses. No issues there. So no claims. Insurance it depends on the area. So, depending on the area, depending on, if you buy or lease a truck, what your insurance looks like. It's around, for mobile only, it's about $8,000 to $16,000 a year. Once again, if you're in Florida, it's different. If you're in Texas, it's different. The arena is about $38,000 a year in insurance. But that's all factored into the P&L, into the profit margin, so.
Yeah, maybe following up on that. What about just headline risk? Like, do you worry that a kid falls off of something in Florida and then the entire system is sort of tarnished?
I mean, it's always a risk. Like we take safety super seriously. Like the pads and mats we buy are like really, really high quality, high dense, mats. It's something that we're constantly training on. Fall heights, making sure our fall heights are the right height. We actually have a meeting to walk through with our insurance adjuster next week to like go through all of our equipment, make sure that we're sort of up to spec, up to standard. We work really closely with them and make sure that everything from a safety standpoint, training is all sort of dialed in as well. And we have people on who they just set the course, and then they also are helping kids through the course as well. They're not just like go play and like have fun and see what happens.
Back to the point that you were making about Fran Dev strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're entering a new market, candidate comes in.
Yep.
Is your strategy say, hey, pick which is best for you, or are you going to be adamant about, hey, I'd rather brick and mortar first, right?
It's pretty self-selective. Brick and mortar is $1 million investment. We look for a $1.5 million net worth individual. So like that's already like a massive separator, which is why we rolled out the mobile, because we wanted something at a lower investment level.
But don't you think that would hinder Fran Dev opportunities in the future? Like if I was a prospect entering a market, someone has an established mobile business in there, I might be less inclined to go ahead and open up a brick and mortar, right?
I think
or vice versa.
Two things to address that. I think that they would help each other quite a bit. Also, if the mobile person is doing well, then they can leverage that business to finance a brick and mortar if they're interested in it. But I do think they could operate independently and still actually help each other, because you're in a Ninja Nation mobile business, you're in the community, you're doing events, you can be driving the brand to somebody's brick and mortar where they're doing birthday parties, camps, classes, open gym, which is a totally different experience than like an event, based experience.
That's very different if you have two separate franchisee organizations. Ideally, of course they get along and it's a symbiotic relationship. But
well, ideally, if somebody's in a mobile market and they're doing great, and we're like, hey, this would be a great market for a brick and mortar. Let's add it in and like phase it in over the next year or so, and work with them on that. That would be the ideal scenario.
If you had your druthers, would you seed brick and mortar and then do mobile? Like is that one way to think about a development strategy?
Or seed mobile and then
you would do the opposite.
Brick and mortar, because it's quicker to market. I mean, to get a brick and mortar space that's 15,000 square feet takes some time. We're 6 to 16 months.
What's the startup for the mobile?
$250,000 all in for 2 courses, and all the franchise fees associated, things like that. So.
All right, I'm going to ask one more hard question.
All right, I like it.
NBC announces tomorrow that they've discontinued American Ninja Warrior. What happens to your business, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the kids playing and kids movement is sort of our core and our rock. If the TV show goes away, we're still a place where kids can play, families can play, like kids and families can do things together. Same thing with events. We're still an event-based business for mobile that nobody's ever seen before, and adds a lot of value to event promoters and people who are putting on events, saying like, hey, we've got this amazing thing for kids, we've got this amazing thing for families. It's not tied to the show. Like it's sort of the philosophy of movement and getting kids moving, and movement as medicine is more like the sort of where we play, and it's not necessarily tied to a show. So. Yeah. Is that 10 minutes? Oh, I got 1 more minute. All right. Let's hear it, Nick.
All right, you got 1 more minute.
I do. Do we hold our breath?
No, this 1 minute is yours, brother.
I've got one question.
Oh, yeah, we got a question.
Sorry.
All right.
My last question, just impact of weather. Does the mobile product work in Connecticut, Colorado?
Yeah, so it works. I mean, that's why we tested it in Colorado. We do a lot of indoor events, November, December, January, February. We've done, X Games wanted us to do it in the snow. I mean, they paid us $17,000 to do an event in the snow. I'm going to take it. And they also had a lot of participants. Like they had kids in snowboard boots and all kinds of stuff, having fun with it. It's predominantly April, May, June, July, August, September, October in Colorado. Once again, 83 events last year, but if we're going to be at 100 plus events this year, just based on the rebookings, those are all sort of where it's going to be.
But there is seasonality.
There is seasonality to it, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that this concept would do insanely well in California. It'd be do insanely well in places like Florida, things like that. Like you would be able to have a 140 events, 150 event season in some of those places than you would in, let's say, North Dakota, right?
So devastated if I was an 8-year-old kid and it rained on the day of my ninja birthday party, though.
But we can move it inside too. We've moved it inside.
With the mobile, you can move the
yeah,
mobile
we can
inside?
Move the mobile inside. We've done that at schools, especially in Colorado, because sometimes storms happen.
You just build relationships with a local YMCA or community center or something so that you
Right,
can.
or you can bring it into a school. I mean, most public schools, you can actually book their gym for a given weekend or a time slot or things like that. That's what we do for our Discovery Days. We just like do a free event at a school, and then we just invite the entire school to come out and do it, and gives us space to do it inside. We're guaranteed from a weather standpoint. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Okay, so we have 10 minutes. We are going to let the judges deliberate. We'll be back with you at 1 p.m.